Hey there, and welcome to Boring History for Sleep. If you enjoy these gentle journeys into the past, please subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a calming chapter. Today, we're drifting back to ancient Rome to uncover why it truly sucked to be a gladiator. Imagine yourself stepping into the dusty training grounds, feeling the weight of steel on your back, and hearing the distant roar of the crowd. A world where every day was a constant struggle for survival. In the coming hours, we'll walk alongside these fighters, exploring their routines, their hopes, their fears, and the harsh realities they live through. Let the soft rhythm of history guide you toward rest as we begin our story. Imagine yourself at dawn, the sky still heavy with the last vestiges of night. You stand in the shadow of the Gladiator barracks, long, low-roofed structures of weathered wood and sun-baked brick. A faint mist clings to the ground, and the air carries the cool promise of morning. Around you, the world is silent except for the soft murmur of voices and the steady rhythm of boots on packed earth. It's here that the day begins for a gladiator, a life governed by routine, discipline, and the weight of expectation. As you step inside, the scent of sweat and damp straw envelops you. Mats of hay line the floor, meant to cushion weary bodies when they rest, but dampness from last night's spills clings to every fibre. The straw feels coarse beneath your fingers as you straighten it out, preparing a space for yourself among dozens of other fighters. In the corner, you hear the scrape of steel as one of the veterani sharpens his gladius against a whetstone. Ring, ring, ring. Each scrape sends a tiny shower of metal shards across the floor, catching the early light in fleeting sparks. A whisper of fear runs through you, a reminder that this blade, once sharpened, will soon taste blood again. The instructor steps forward, a hulking figure, his face as lined as the leather straps of his armour. His voice is low, but carries easily in the hush. Rise. You obey without conscious thought. There's no warmth in his tone, only the authority that has honed you into shape. Outside, the sky flushes pink and gold. For a moment you glimpse the world beyond these walls, vine-draped hills, the distant silhouette of the Colosseum, and the bustle of Rome waking up. But the moment fades, and you're ushered toward the training grounds. Here, the space opens into a rectangular arena of packed earth, ringed by wooden posts and rope. The morning light reveals patterns of footprints and scuff marks left by hundreds of warriors before you. You can almost feel the echoes of their laboured breaths, their silent prayers. Your first task is stretching, simple movements repeated with precision. Each joint uncoils, each muscle lengthens, and you breathe slowly, deliberately, as if each inhalation could steady your heart. Around you, others follow the same motions, some with ease, others with grim determination. These exercises are meant to condition your body, yes, but also to still your mind. A distracted gladiator is a dead gladiator. Afterward, the instructor dispatches pairs for sword drills. You face your partner, a fellow stayer, accustomed to the same routine. His eyes meet yours, neither friend nor foe yet, but in time he may be both. You take up your wooden sword and feel its familiar balance in your hands. The instructor calls out commands in staccato bursts. Lunge, parry, riposte. With each motion, you're reminded of the deadly stakes. Though the weapons are wooden, the lessons stick. Muscle memory formed now will save your life later. The morning wears on with repetitions. Sword and shield practice, dagger routines, shield bashes. Each drill builds strength and hones reflexes. Between exercises, water is handed out in wooden basins, and you pause, cupping your hands, letting the cold liquid wash away the grit. You swallow slowly, tasting the faint tang of metal from a chipped rim. As the sun climbs higher, shadows shorten, and the air warms. Sweat beads on your forehead and trickles down your spine. You pause to wipe it away, but the instructor's sharp gaze cuts across the ground, and you resume without protest. There is no room for weakness here. Not today, not ever. "Attention," he calls, and you fall into line with the others. He nods once, then gestures toward a stack of padded training dummies. "Our world," he seems to say, "is not mercy. It is competition, survival, and a constant test of will." Over the next hour you unleash strikes against the dummies, practicing the precise combination of power and control needed to fell an opponent. Your arms burn, your breath deepens, but each repetition carves a small victory into your body, preparing you for the day when the wooden blade is swapped for steel. As part one of our journey closes, the routine continues. Sweat, steel, and solitude blending into the rhythm of a life lived for the arena. Soon, the world beyond will intrude again, but for now, the training ground's your universe, harsh, demanding, and impossible to ignore. The clang of metal resounds as you transition to paired weapon drills. The air shifts. What was a measured rhythm becomes a dance of steel. Your partner moves in time, gladius glinting, shield raised. Slowly at first, you exchange thrusts and parries, matching each other's pace. Every impact sends a reverberation through your arm, a reminder of the strength required and the vulnerability beneath your guard. You learn the subtle art of feints, drawing an opponent one direction before striking another. Your instructor watches intently, correcting your stance, heel aligned, hips squared, shoulders relaxed yet ready. When you adjust your grip, he nods, and you feel a small surge of pride. After the gladius, it's the trident and net. You grasp the wooden shaft, the net's coarse mesh draped over your arm. Practice throws become an exercise in timing and anticipation. You learn to flick the net just so, its cords unfurling to entangle a target dummy. Then you pivot, thrusting the trident forward in a swift arc. It's an exercise in contrasts, entrapment and precision. Mid-morning, a brief respite comes. The instructor allows you to rest by a low wall of stacked stones. You lean back, soaking in the warmth of the sun that now streams across the arena. The scent of roasted chickpeas drifts from a nearby cook's hearth, mingling with the ever-present tang of sweat and leather. You reach out for a small loaf of barley bread, stale but nourishing. Each bite is slow, deliberate. Around you, murmurs of conversation rise, snatches of dreams shared in hushed tones. One gladiator speaks of freedom he hopes to earn, another whispers of letters sent home. For a brief moment the barracks feels like a community, bound by shared hardship. But camaraderie here is fragile. In a world where only the strongest endure, trust is tempered with caution. A flash of envy crosses a comrade's eyes as you finish your bread. The thought flickers and is gone, but the lesson remains. Even here, friendship is provisional. Refreshed, you return to the centre of the training grounds for mounted combat drills. A wooden horse effigy stands in for a live steed, and you mount, feeling the sway beneath you. You practice striking target dummies placed at varying heights. Each downward swing must account for motion and momentum. Too heavy, and you risk throwing yourself from a real horse. Too light, and your strike fails to land. The day's heat intensifies. Sweat soaks through your tunic, leaving dark patches around your collar. Yet, there is no pause. The instructor guides you through endurance runs, laps around the perimeter, sandals slipping on loose earth. You count each footfall, each breath, until your legs feel leaden, but you push on. Because here, in this arena of repetition, weakness is unforgiven. As part 2 draws to a close, you find yourself back at the dummies. Only now, The drills feel more fluid, each movement a testament to muscle memory carved by relentless practice. You begin to sense the rhythm, the inhale before a strike, the shift of weight, the exhale on release. In these moments there is a strange tranquility, a fleeting sense of mastery amid the constant spectre of danger. The morning fades and the sun leans west. Shadows stretch across the ground like long fingers, signalling that the day's true tests lie beyond training. Soon you will don steel for the school bout, where wooden weapons give way to edges meant to cut. But for now, you breathe deeply, embracing the hard-earned calm at the heart of your relentless routine. The bell for the school bout rings, echoing off the high walls of the training grounds. You steel yourself and move toward the rack where steel weapons await. The wooden practice swords and dummies are now replaced by gladi sharpened to a fine edge, scutum shields reinforced with bronze trim, and helmets lined with leather straps. Your instructor oversees the pairing. Today's opponent is a newcomer, lithe and quick on his feet. You size each other up briefly. There's no malice in his stance, only the wary respect shared between two men about to test their mettle. You take a deep breath, fitting the helmet snugly, the leather straps pressing gently against your cheeks. Metal cools against your forehead. You slip the shield onto your left arm, adjusting the grip until it feels like part of you. The other gladiators form a loose circle, silent except for the scrape of sand underfoot. The first clash is tentative, a tap of steel on steel. You feel the reverberation through your sword arm. Then the rhythm accelerates. You parry a thrust, pivot, and drive your gladius toward his flank. He steps back, the point coming inches from his tunic. No blood flows in these school bouts. Victory is marked by a missed parry or the hearty nod of your instructor. Around you, the other pairs move with similar intensity. There's an odd elegance to the violence, a choreography born of countless repetitions. Sand kicks up around booted feet, swirling in the sunlight as blades flash. Your chest heaves beneath the weight of armour as you pivot, strike and defend. The newcomer feints left, then lunges right. You scramble, sliding your shield to meet his blow. Metal grinds on metal, and you taste dusty grit on your tongue. He is good, quick, unpredictable. But you have experience, the kind of muscle memory that takes years to build. With a final parry, you catch his blade and twist. The tip of your gladius rests lightly against his chest plate. The crowd of trainees quiets in unison. You lower your sword, he lowers his. Your instructor steps forward, nods once, and the bout ends. Though no real wounds are dealt, every clash reminds you of the blade's true purpose. You remove your helmet, wiping sweat from your brow. The midday sun beats down, and the heat seems to magnify every sensation. The weight of armour, the grainy touch of sand, the sharp tang of metal. Drinking water from a shared skin, you feel a sense of relief wash over you. You've passed today's test, but you know it's only one of many. The school bouts are not for entertainment, they're for preparation. Each strike, each parry, each calculated risk hones your skill and your will. You move to a shaded alcove carved into the barracks wall to rest. Your partner from the bout sits nearby, exchanging a few words. There's camaraderie here, forged in sweat and steel. He speaks softly of his origins. A slave captured in Gaul, sold to a lanista for his size and strength. You nod, listening as the warmth of midday sun shifts to afternoon shadows. There is a fleeting sense of peace in this moment, a pause in the relentless cycle of training. Yet, even as you rest, your mind is already on the next drill. Endurance swimming in the nearby cistern, then hand-to-hand combat without weapons. And beyond that, the day when an arena crowd will watch you and the blade will not be dull. As part 3 draws to a close, you rise, shoulders squared, ready to face the next challenge with the same determination that brought you here. For a gladiator, every day is a step toward the unknown, a balance between control and fate. In the late afternoon light, the training grounds grow quiet. A soft breeze stirs the dust, carrying distant sounds of Rome, merchants closing stalls, the toll of a temple bell, and somewhere, faint laughter drifting on the wind. For a moment it feels as if the world beyond these walls exists in another lifetime. Yet, inside the barracks, there is still work to be done. Your next task is the grueling cistern swim. You strip down to your loincloth and wade into the shallow pool, a sunken stone chamber fed by aqueducts, its walls slick with algae and dimly lit by narrow openings above. The water is cool at first, but quickly your muscles tighten against the chill. You push off the wall and begin to swim laps, each stroke measured, each turn deliberate. After several laps you pause to tread water, letting your arms move in small circular motions to stave off cramps. You feel the glare of the sun through the grated opening above. The light dances on the water's surface in shifting patterns. In this moment the world narrows to the sound of your own breathing and the feel of water against your skin. Exiting the cistern, you pull on your tunic, soaked through, and stand shivering in the breeze. The instructor watches from a low bench, nodding once. Good. No further praise is offered. You know that every test must be passed without acknowledgement. Next comes hand-to-hand combat. Leather straps wrap around your fists and forearms. No swords, no shields, just your fists and your wits. Opponents range from heavy-set veterans to wiry newcomers, each fight a test of endurance, balance, and sheer will. Your partner lunges and you dodge, feeling the rush of air as his fist slices past your cheek. You counter with a quick jab, connecting with his ribs. The impact knocks the wind from him, and you feel a sting in your own knuckles. You breathe through your nose, focusing on the rhythm. Inhale, strike. Exhale, retreat. A dance of subtle shifts. Weight forward to strike, back to avoid. The arena floor feels hard beneath your feet. Packed earth that offers no forgiveness. Muscles burn in your shoulders, and sweat mingles with the grime on your skin. Yet with each exchange, you learn how to read an opponent's stance, how to time a blow, how to protect your jaw while striking with your fists. When the session ends, both of you stand, chests heaving, fists dull with fatigue. There are no winners here, only lessons. As the sun dips toward the horizon, the day's final ritual begins, the ritualized cleaning of gear. You carry your shield and gladius to the wash area, where yogurt skin, an ointment made from fermented sheep's milk, and olive oil are used to remove rust and patina from metal surfaces. Each stroke of cloth brings a subtle shine back to the steel. The process is repetitive but meditative, rubbing oil into leather straps, massaging goose fat into wooden shafts, wiping away grime until the metal gleams. A fellow gladiator hums softly an old folk tune from Capua as he works on his greaves, and you find yourself humming along. For a brief moment the weight of the day lifts. The ritual feels sacred, tools of war transformed into gleaming artifacts ready for the arena. Finally, you return your gear to its rack. The barracks grow dim as torches are lit along the walls, casting flickering shadows that dance on the low ceiling. You gather your straw mat, roll it, and secure it with a leather thong. Nearby, others prepare their spaces for rest. A straw pillow stuffed with wool, a tattered blanket folded neatly. Lying down, you look at the sliver of sky visible through the narrow window. The first stars appear. Venus, a bright point of light. Jupiter shimmering faintly. The day's routines echo in your mind. Drills, diet, discipline. You feel the ache in your muscles, the weight of armour, the constant presence of the arena's call. As you close your eyes, the hush of the barracks is punctuated by soft snores and the creak of wood settling. You drift towards sleep, carried by memories of steel and sand, of whispered hopes, and of the unending rhythm of life as a gladiator. Segment 1 has drawn to its close, leaving you immersed in the daily routine of these fighters, a world of sweat, discipline, and silent endurance. In our next segment, we will delve into a particular life, one whose story bridges the gulf between slave and legend, the biography of a famous gladiator and the event that changed his fate forever. Imagine yourself standing in the back corridors of the amphitheatre, where the crowds cannot see. Here, history often pivots on a single figure, a lone gladiator whose fate bridges the world of bondage and the realm of legend. This is the story of Marcus Attilius, known to many as Atticus, once a farm boy torn from his home and later one of the most celebrated fighters in the empire. Born in the countryside near Capua, Atticius's early life was defined by the rhythms of rural labour. Picture verdant fields stretching toward the Apennines, the air filled with cicadas' songs and the scent of ripening grain. Young Marcus learned to wield a plough, bend his back beneath the sun, and listen to the soft murmurs of the wind. His world was simple, anchored by family and seasons. But in the year 75 CE, the eruption of conflict scattered this tranquil existence. A civil war unfolded as rival claimants to the throne vied for power. Armies swept through the Italian countryside, legions and mercenary bands alike, leaving villages in ruin. One autumn morning, Atticius awoke to find his home smouldering, his family gone, and the land he knew buried beneath ash and sorrow. Captured by marauding soldiers, he was sold to a lanista, a trainer of gladiators, in Rome. Imagine the shock. One moment, you're at your mother's table. The next, you stand shackled on a merchant ship bound for the heart of the empire. The voyage was a haze of salt spray, cramped quarters, and whispered prayers. The taste of brine lingered on your tongue, mingling with fear. When the ship docked at Ostia, Atticius's world shifted again. The lanista, a portly man with a hooked nose and keen eyes, assessed his new purchase, a tall youth, sinewy but unbroken. There was potential here, muscle rippled beneath sun-darkened skin and eyes that gleamed with quiet resolve. He was led through the busy streets of Rome, past merchants hawking exotic spices and children chasing wooden hoops, until the distant roar of the Colosseum pressed against his mind like a promise or a threat. Inside the gladiator school, Atticius faced the same grueling routine we explored earlier. But it was here that something changed. While his fellow recruits viewed each other with suspicion, he bore himself with a calm steadiness, a silent focus. He absorbed the lessons of sword and net, of shield and fist, with a determination that caught the instructor's eye. Where others saw only survival, Atticius saw a path to something beyond. His first bout came quickly, a school fight in the underground arena lit by torches and ringed by rough stone walls. The crowd consisted only of trainers and fellow fighters, but the stakes felt immense. You can almost feel the tension, the echo of a dropped gauntlet, the scrape of footsteps on sand, the sharp scent of sweat mixed with torches' smoke. He faced a stocky Thracian, known for charging like a bull. As the bout began, Atticius recognized the rhythm in his lunges, the weight shift before a horn-like strike. Instead of meeting force with force, he stepped aside, used the momentum to unbalance his opponent, and drove his gladius with precision into a padded belt, scoring the bout. The silence that followed was profound, broken only by the instructor's rare praise. In the month that followed, his reputation grew. He fought in stage spectacles meant to entertain, animal hunts, mock naval battles washed with water and paired bouts against condemned criminals. Each victory brought small rewards, a richer meal, the chance to write a letter home, the possibility of earning rudies, the wooden sword symbol of freedom. Yet, it wasn't until the festival of Nemesis that Atticus's life irrevocably changed. The emperor had decreed a grand spectacle, 100 gladiators in the arena, paired against 300 wild beasts imported from Africa and the East. Lions, leopards, elephants, and even the dreaded warthogs, their tusks curved and sharp. On the morning of the festival, you step through the gate with Atticus. The arena stretches before you, a vast sea of pale sand beneath a cloudless sky. The stands teeming with spectators, senators draped in togas, merchants in tunics, and commoners perched on wooden benches. The air vibrates with anticipation, murmurs rolling like distant thunder. Drums beat, and the gate behind you trembles. From below, the beasts surge up ramps into the arena, shaking horns, snapping jaws, thunderous footfalls. For a moment, you feel the earth itself quiver. Then, with a cry, Atticus raises his shield and steps forward. What happened next defined his legend. Rather than flee, he led the charge, using the net to trip a charging lion, then closing in with his gladius. He fought the beast not as mindless horrors, but as challenges to be met, each strike measured, each dodge precise. The crowd watched in stunned silence as one beast after another fell before him. When weeks passed after the festival of Nemesis, and Rome's whispers about Atticus grew into cheers that echoed through taverns and temples alike. Yet behind those cheers lay the more subtle shifts of a life transformed and haunted. Imagine the days that followed his triumph, mornings bathed in golden sunlight that now felt tinged with irony, and nights filled with restless dreams of roars and claws. While the Lanista celebrated his champion's fame, issuing new scrolls and commissioning a statue, Atticus grappled with a more personal reckoning. The rudis in his hand was the symbol of freedom, yet the shackles worn by his memories remained. Each sunrise brought with it the distant recall of his mother's voice, urging him to tend the fields, and his father's laughter as they worked side by side. Yet, those days were gone. The farmland lay fallow under centuries of neglect. Atticus walked through its remains on a rare journey back to Capua, the rudis heavy against his side, not as a token of victory but as a reminder of loss. The fields he once tilled were overgrown with weeds, and the farmhouse stood in silent ruin, its roof caved in, beams splintered by time and conflict. Standing there, he confronted the irony. His destiny, forged in the blood of beasts and men, led him back to a home that had already perished. The wind carried the ghosts of his past, the laughter of siblings, the scent of fresh bread baking in a hearth now cold. He closed his eyes, feeling the weight of survival and the sting of survival's cost. Returning to Rome, he found a city that hailed him as a hero but offered little solace. Noble patrons sought to sponsor his post-gladiatorial career, proposing exhibitions of his prowess and commissioning elaborate dinners in his honour. Their togas gleamed, their speeches flowed with praise, yet Atticus felt the distance between them and him, between the polished marble of their villas and the gritty arena sand that defined his life. In the months that followed, Atticus attempted to navigate this new social landscape. He attended banquets where the clink of fine glassware felt alien in his rough hands. He listened to senators discuss politics and philosophy, their words heavy with abstractions that felt removed from the concrete struggles he had known. Yet, a curious transformation took place. The same focus that served him in the arena guided him here. He learned proper etiquette, mastered the subtleties of conversation, and cultivated an image that blended the awe of legend with an approachable humility. But every smile concealed a flicker of doubt. When he spoke of his past, listeners leaned in, eyes wide with fascination. Yet, their applause felt conditional, a reward for entertainment rather than understanding. Aticius yearned for a simpler truth, the warm embrace of family, the honest toil of the land. Yet those shards of life lay forever shattered. His fame also brought dangers. Rival gladiators, still shackled to the sand, saw in him a prize for their own ambitions. Some attempted to ambush him in dark alleys. Others spread rumours of his cowardice in certain bouts. Aticius responded not with the sword but with restraint, refusing to be drawn into senseless feuds. He relied on a small cadre of loyal guards, men who had fought and bled alongside him, protecting his passage through crowded forums and narrow lanes. Despite these challenges, he found moments of grace. He met Aurelia, a healer of modest means, whose compassion matched his own quiet strength. She listened without awe, seeing him not as a hero, but as a man marked by both triumph and sorrow. With her he walked along the Tiber at dusk, sharing stories of capes and swords, of distant fields and distant dreams. In those walks, Aticius glimpsed a peace beyond the roar of the crowd. Yet, no peace lasts forever. In the second year of his newfound freedom, the empire itself was rocked by the news of a brewing rebellion in the provinces. Legions marched, and tax collectors tightened their grip on the populace. The price of grain rose, and bread rations dwindled. Rumours of unrest reached even the insulated world of the amphitheatre. Seeking purpose beyond comfortable patronage, Aticius felt the old call of combat resurgence within him, not for glory, but for justice. He petitioned the emperor for permission to lead a small contingent against marauding brigands threatening rural villages. His petition, unusual for a former gladiator, was granted more as a curiosity than a serious plan. Yet, when the time came, Aticius stood once more at the forefront of a line of men, not slaves bound to sand, but free citizens bound to cause. The campaign was brutal but brief. The brigands, more bandits than soldiers, melted away in the rough hills of Etruria. Yet, in the clash of spear and shield, Aticius felt the stir of his old self, the calm focus, the steady breath, the calculated strike. The campaign in Etruria earned Aticius gratitude from grateful villagers and cautious respect from the governor. Yet, upon returning to Rome, he felt an unexpected longing for the simplicity of the amphitheatre's clear rules. Here in the streets of the city, alliances shifted like desert sands. One day he was a celebrated protector. The next, whispers of his ambition stirred suspicion among senators wary of any power not tied to birth. Imagine him walking through the forum on a bright morning, the white marble columns gleaming. Senators in crimson-bordered togas cast sideways glances. Aticius moved with measured strides, Rudis at his side, not as a symbol of slavery, but as a reminder of his own journey. Market traders paused mid-haggle, their eyes alight with recognition. Children pointed and whispered. The line between legend and liability blurred quickly. One evening, at a banquet hosted by a senatorial ally, a rival, Gaius Veranius, raised a glass and toasted not to Aticius's bravery, but to his savage beginnings. Laughter rippled through the hall. Aticius's jaw tightened, but he lifted his cup in return, eyes steady, voice calm. To the strength we forge in adversity, no matter its shape. The diners fell silent, struck by the quiet power in his words. In the days that followed, Attichus pondered the precariousness of status. His freedom, once hard won, now felt as fragile as the flicker of a torch in a draughty tomb. Yet he also recognised an opportunity. With his story, he could bridge the gap between Rome's elite and its beaten-down masses. If he spoke for those without a voice, slaves, veterans, impoverished citizens, perhaps he could temper the empire's harsher edges. This realization guided him to the temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus, where he stood beneath the soaring pediment, marble glinting in the noonday sun. He knelt, not in prayer, but in reflection. The weight of history pressed upon him, the emperors, the Senate, the legions, the great tapestry of Rome itself. When he rose, Attichus made a decision. Instead of remaining in the sheltered ark of patronage, he would use his influence to advocate for reforms, better rations for fighters still enslaved, medical care for wounded veterans, and lighter tax burdens for rural communities still recovering from war. He drafted petitions, met with freedmen allies, and even spoke before the Curia Julia, his voice steady as he laid out his proposals. The reaction was mixed. Some hailed him as a hero of the people, others derided him as a would-be demagogue. Yet the seeds of change were sown. A minor adjustment in grain distribution paved the way for broader discussions. Attichus found himself at the heart of a movement that straddled arenas, swords laid down in favour of speeches and petitions. Through all this, his nights remained uneasy. Dreams of roaring beasts blended with visions of the forum's marble benches. He awoke in a cold sweat, reaching instinctively for the rudis beside his bed. A strange solace came from its wooden form, harmless yet potent in memory. One morning, Attichus received a letter bearing the imperial seal. The emperor himself invited him to a private audience. Heart pounding, he donned a simple tunic, no armour, no fanfare, just the quiet dignity he had cultivated. In the imperial palace's private audience chamber, relief sculptures depicted past emperors, their faces carved in eternal solidity. The emperor, seated upon a gilded chair, regarded Attichus with a measured gaze. "Marcus Attilius," he began, "your deeds have not gone unnoticed. You have stood between wild beasts and civilized men, and now you stand between the powerful and the powerless. Rome is in need of men like you." Attichus bowed, heart hammering. The emperor continued, "I offer you a post, advising on matters of security and public welfare. You will have the authority to enact certain measures, but remember, power tempers the soul prematurely wielded." As Part 3 closes, consider the path before Attichus, from captive to champion, from fighter to reformer. The arena of combat had given way to the arena of politics, a realm where words could wound and promises held power equal to any blade. What choices would define his legacy, and what sacrifices would they demand? The weeks following his imperial appointment were a whirlwind of councils, petitions, and inspections. Attichus found himself moving between the echoing halls of the Senate and the bustling streets of the Subura, between tiled atria of the wealthy and mud-brick insulae of the poor. Each new environment demanded a shift, from the measured swing of his gladius to the measured cadence of his voice. Early one morning, he journeyed to the barracks of the Manichae, a gladiator school known for housing fighters from distant provinces. Here he watched as instructors trained the newest arrivals, men and women from Germania, Numidia, and beyond. Shields clanged, leather thudded, and torches cast a warm glow on faces etched with determination and fear. Attichus addressed the gathered crowd. His words were soft but carried. He spoke of fair rations, medical care, and the promise of rudis for those who distinguished themselves. The trainees listened, some with hope, others with scepticism. In the back, A burly Gaulian raised his hand. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. "You wear freedom lightly, Roman. But will you remember us? Tied to the sands." Atticus felt the weight of the question as if the man addressed him in the ring. He nodded, meeting the gladiator's gaze. "I will remember, and I will act." From that moment, a series of reforms took root. Atticus arranged for physicians to visit the schools regularly, offering treatments for wounds and illnesses. He negotiated with grain suppliers in Ostia to allocate extra shipments to gladiators, ensuring they received better bread and salted fish. He even sponsored a small library in one ludus, where fighters could learn to read letters from home. These changes did not go unnoticed. In the Senate, some applauded his efforts as a model of benevolence. Others decried them as demagoguery, a dangerous concession to the mob. Debates grew heated, and Atticus had to navigate political currents more complex than any arena match. Meanwhile, the memory of the Festival of Nemesis lingered in his mind like a half-remembered dream. He often walked alone to the amphitheatre at dawn, the empty stands silent except for birdsong. He sat in the emperor's box, imagining the sea of faces and the thunder of applause. The adrenaline rush was gone, but something else remained. A profound respect for the lives he once risked, and the lives he now sought to improve. One afternoon, news arrived of a riot in the Ludus Magnus. A dispute over rations had escalated into violence. Shields were smashed, and several men were injured. Atticus rushed to the scene, donning a simple tunic and hellebarde, not as a fighter, but as a mediator. He stood between the two factions, disgruntled recruits and an overtaxed instructor, his presence enough to command attention. He spoke not with the roar of a champion, but with the calm authority of a leader. He promised fair distribution, a review of supplies, and hearings for grievances. His words, backed by the emperor's decree, diffused the anger. The injured received treatment from his appointed physicians, and the culprit instructor faced disciplinary action rather than execution, a mercy unheard of before his reforms. As Part 4 draws to a close, consider the arc of Atticus's journey. A man once shackled to the sands of the arena, now wielding political power to fight the injustice he once embodied. His story asks us, can a warrior truly change the world with words as well as with steel? And at what cost to himself does he bear the mantle of both fighter and reformer? Imagine yourself at a dusty excavation site on the outskirts of Rome, where the modern world gives way to layers of history buried beneath the soil. Here, archaeologists kneel among fragments of pottery, shards of amphorae that once carried wine for spectators, and broken tiles from collapsed seating tiers. The air is still, save for the soft scratch of trowels against earth and the distant hum of cicadas. Beneath a shallow trench, a team uncovers a stone sarcophagus, a rare find near an ancient gladiator barracks. The lid is etched with faded reliefs, crossed swords, a palm frond symbolizing victory, and the faint outline of a gladiator's helmet. With gentle precision, the sarcophagus is opened, revealing a skeleton arranged with care. Around it lie grave goods, a small bronze mirror, a clay oil lamp, and, astonishingly, fragments of a richly decorated wooden box that once held the recipient's personal items. The lead archaeologist, a woman with careful hands and quiet authority, explains that this burial likely belonged to a gladiator who died free, one granted the honour of a proper interment by grateful patrons. Imagine the surprise and sorrow of those ancient mourners who laid their fallen comrade to rest with tokens of appreciation amid the dust of near-constant death. Nearby, another discovery emerges. graffiti scratched into the stone walls of a Ludus Magnus corridor. The inscriptions are simple yet haunting, names like Flammer, Crixus and Scarus, each followed by tally marks, victories perhaps, or days survived within the school's walls. Next to them, crude drawings depict helmets and weapons, and one shows a small figure holding a ruders aloft like a banner. These markings offer a glimpse into the gladiators' own voices, a stark contrast to the official records maintained by Lanistae and emperors. Through these scratches in stone, we feel a human longing for recognition and remembrance, even in a world where lives were measured in blood and sand. Further along the trench, shards of decorated ceramic cups bear faint paintings of the games themselves, chariots racing around the Circus Maximus, but also scenes of gladiatorial combat, gladiators locked in struggle, their figures outlined in bold strokes. Though stylized, the art captures the emotion of the spectacle, the tension before a clash, the theatrical poses struck for drama, the triumphant lifts of defeated weapons. Next, the team reveals a surprising find, a cache of wooden writing tablets sealed within a collapsed storeroom. The tablets, preserved by layers of ash from a nearby building fire, carry messages from gladiators requesting supplies, waxes for grips, repair straps for shields, fresh linens for wounds. One reads, Lanista Titus, the net throws tear too easily. Send nets from Gaul, thick mesh if you would. Another pleads for medical herbs. My wrist aches with a new swell. Send salves before the bout. Holding these fragile tablets, you feel as if you're peering into the daily concerns of these fighters, the practical, small-scale desires that humanize them far beyond the grandeur of the arena. Even more mysterious is the discovery of clay oil lamps stamped with the image of a certain gladiator, Lutorius the Swift. Historians debate whether Lutorius was a champion or a mythic figure embraced by fans. The lamps were likely sold outside the amphitheatre, much like modern souvenirs, and would have burned through the night in homes where patrons relived the thrill of the games. As part 1 of this segment concludes, consider the power of these archaeological treasures: skeletal remains, graffiti, pottery and tablets, each offering a fragment of the gladiator's world. They remind us that beneath the spectacle lay flesh and blood individuals whose hopes and hardships are preserved in the earth itself, waiting for discovery. Deep beneath the streets of Rome, in a vaulted chamber once used to house animals before the games, archaeologists uncover a cache of animal bones and tools. These remnants tell another story, one of the spectacle behind the spectacle, where men and beasts rehearsed a primal dance. Imagine yourself in that dimly lit space, the scent of damp stone and old straw still lingering. The bones are arranged in patterns, almost ritualistic. The rib of a bear laid next to a broken cage hinge, the skull of a bull near a rusted iron trap. Among them lies a worn leather harness, its straps frayed yet still intact. These artifacts suggest a system of training and maintenance similar to that of gladiators, beasts conditioned for combat, fed carefully, and guided by handlers who understood both biology and brutality. Nearby, a set of graffiti etched by labourers on the chamber walls reads, Today, Ursus broke his chain. Tomorrow, he meets the man. These words hint at the grim humour of keepers who risked life and limb to manage creatures bred for death. Further layers reveal fragments of remains not just of beasts, but of food stores, grain husks, fish bones, and discarded amphorae shards. These indicate how the amphitheatre complex functioned as a small city, feeding men and animals alike, requiring logistics that would rival any modern sporting venue. On one shelf in the chamber, a small wooden box sealed with beeswax contains a set of oil lamps, moulded in the shape of animal muzzles, lions, leopards, and even crocodiles. When lit, the flames flicker through eye holes, casting eerie shadows on the walls, perhaps used during nocturnal ceremonies honouring the gods of the arena. Moving from beneath the amphitheatre to the surrounding neighbourhoods, you explore the Subura district, where an unexpected find emerges, a mosaic floor depicting the guardian deities of the arena, Mars Ultor, Hercules and Nemesis, standing over a pair of crossed swords. The craftsmanship is exquisite, each tessera rendered with care, the colours still vivid despite centuries of neglect. This mosaic likely adorned the home of a wealthy sponsor, a patron who sought divine favour and public acclaim by associating his household with the spectacle. It underscores how the games permeated every level of Roman society, from the dusty sands of the arena to the opulent halls of the elite. Back at the excavation site, the archaeologists pieced together a larger narrative. The artefacts reveal a culture of preparation, of rituals both public and private that framed the gladiatorial games as not merely entertainment, but a sacred rite. Oil lamps in animal shapes, animal training bones, graffiti and mosaics all point to a society negotiating the boundary between civility and savagery. As part 2 of this segment concludes, reflect on these discoveries. They remind us that beneath the grandeur of the games lay intricate systems of support and belief, where humans and animals both played roles in a drama that transcended mere sport. To understand gladiators, we must also understand the cultural machinery that elevated them to icons, gods, and cautionary tales. Emerging from the world of bones and pottery, you follow clues to a hidden room beneath the Colosseum itself, a vaulted crypt once reserved for priests and officials who oversaw the games. The air here is cool and still, thick with centuries of silence. In the centre, a stone altar sits uncovered, its surface engraved with arcane symbols, the falcon of Jupiter, the trident of Neptune, and the scales of justice. Surrounding it are scattered remains of incense burners and small ceramic dishes once used for offerings. The walls bear faded frescoes depicting scenes of charity to fallen fighters, women placing wreaths on tombs, children carrying oil lamps to burial sites, and priests chanting prayers. This hidden sanctuary reveals the spiritual dimension of the games. Gladiators were not only entertainers but also figures of ritual significance. They embodied virtues, courage, endurance and sacrifice that Romans associated with their gods and the fate of the empire. Nearby you find lead tokens stamped with names and dates, likely used in a secret lottery. Archaeologists believe these were handed out to selected attendees, Vestal virgins, priests and certain senators, to witness exclusive rites honouring slain champions. The fragments suggest that after particularly bloody contests, special ceremonies were held to appease the spirits of those who died, ensuring the favour of deities for future games. As you examine these tokens, you feel a chill, not from the stone, but from the weight of remembrance. The games were spectacles, yes, but they also carried an undercurrent of mortality, bound to religious observance and communal memory. Leaving the crypt, you cross into a quieter part of Rome where artisans once crafted the tools of arena. In a small workshop, the discovery of metal moulds reveals how helmets and greaves were mass-produced to fit a variety of fighters. A wooden pattern for a Murmillo helmet, complete with fish-shaped crest, rests beside a table strewn with leather liners and polishing stones. The leadsmith's furnace sits cold now, but the layout of bricks and charcoal stains tells of its fervent heat. Nearby, a ledger carved on stone lists payments to craftsmen, bronze plates, iron nails, leather straps, and wages in denarii. Even in death, the gladiator's world resonates through these mundane records, calculations of cost, labour, and logistics that underpinned every spectacle. As part 3 of this segment closes, consider the convergence of mystery, archaeology, and culture. Hidden sanctuaries where gods intersected with gladiators, secret tokens linking spectators to rituals, and artisan workshops transforming raw materials into symbols of power. These discoveries remind us that beneath the roar of the crowd lay layers of belief, economy, and memory, each integral to the world of the arena. As twilight settles over the excavation site, you follow archaeologists to a section where graffiti and votive offerings intertwine. Here, walls are inscribed with prayers to Nemesis and Sanctus Gladiatorum, patron deities invoked for safety and remembrance. Tiny oil lamps burn day and night in niches carved into the stone, left by those who sought divine favour or mourned lost comrades. One worn inscription reads, "Nemesis, grant strength to Flammaus, that he may rise again in the sands." Nearby, a small bowl holds fragments of pottery dipped in wine, a ritual libation for the departed. The scents of aged earth and resin linger as you kneel to trace the letters. Moving deeper, you reach a set of chambers where gladiators once held secret meetings. Rough benches carved into the rock bear scratched inscriptions marking days until freedom, tally marks that count down not to death, but to the day a veteran might leave the school and claim his rudis. A central chamber houses a mosaic floor depicting the life cycle of a gladiator. Recruitment in chains, training in a school, combat in the arena, and finally a figure holding a rudis aloft beneath a laurel wreath. The artist captured not just the spectacle but the profound journey, capturing light and shadow with exquisite detail. In an adjacent corridor, researchers uncover a cache of small tokens, bronze discs stamped with the likeness of Spartacus, the famed Thracian who led a rebellion decades earlier. These appear to have been charms worn by those who identified with his defiance. They represent a silent thread of solidarity, fighters remembering a man who sought not just glory but liberation. Beyond symbolic artifacts, the dig reveals utilitarian objects. A set of training dice used to randomize drills, a wooden tally board marking shifts for guard duty, and leather-framed tablets listing scheduled bouts. Each item underscores the structured life behind the thrills, a regimented existence of timed drills, scheduled meals, and measured rest. Finally, as part 4 of this segment concludes, reflect on the archaeological tapestry, prayers etched in stone, mosaics of transformation, tokens of rebellion, and the mundane tools of daily routine. These remnants weave together the cultural fabric of the gladiator's world, one where duty, devotion, and defiance lived side by side beneath the roar of the crowd and the watchful gaze of the gods. Imagine yourself walking through the bustling streets of Rome at dawn, where shifting shadows reveal the stark contrasts of city life. On one side stand the towering domus of the elite, marble porticos adorned with colourful frescoes, tiled roofs gleaming in the morning light, and courtyards lush with orange trees and fountains still dripping from their nightly flows. Statues of ancestors gaze down from pedestals, reminding residents of lineage and duty. On the other side lie insular, multi-storied apartment blocks of rough brick and wood, where lower-class families wake to cramped rooms, shared latrines and narrow stairways that echo with the shuffle of waking feet. The air here is thick with the sense of fires stoked for the day's cooking, the tang of refuse piled in alleyways, and the faint undertone of dust stirred by the clatter of cartwheels. Your steps carry you first to the domus of Gaius Aurelius Severus, a senator of esteemed bearing. Torches still gutter in bronze holders as his slaves, men and women in simple tunics, carry water from the fountain, scrub the marble floors, and smooth cushions in the atrium's triclinia. You pass his villa's central peristyle, where bees hum among potted violets and roses, and admire the polished stone where guests will recline for breakfast. Inside the dining room, a slave lays out delicate wares. Silver cups engraved with mythological scenes, glass goblets imported from Syria, and dishes heaped with olives, figs, and honey cakes. From the kitchen comes the aroma of spiced porridge, pulse, with vegetables grown in distant estates and sprinkled with garum for a savoury edge. Severus himself emerges in a stola of deep purple, its broad stripes marking his senatorial rank. He greets you with the placid courtesy of one accustomed to influence. His speech is measured, each word chosen to convey wisdom and gravitas. He pours wine, Falernian from the slopes of Mount Falernus, tasting it with a discerning nod. As you dine, discussing matters of governance, grain dole distribution, repairs to the aqueducts, the latest edicts from the emperor, there is an underlying certainty that shapes every conversation. Power flows where wealth and birth converge. Here, decisions are made with pens behind closed doors, not with swords in open arenas. Leaving the Domus, you cross to the Subura district, where the day's labour begins in earnest. Children leap down from wooden balconies, chasing each other through narrow lanes. Market stalls open. Vendors cry out the day's prices for cabbage, fish, and leather sandals. Aroma from baking bread drifts from compact ovens built into shop walls. In a nearby insula, Lucius Flavius, a cobbler by trade, begins his day. His workshop occupies the ground floor, where he sits on a low stool carving soles from thick leather. His hands are calloused. He moves with practiced precision. Each cut and stitch must meet the needs of a customer who may be a soldier needing new boots, a slave brought to work under the sun, or a senator's wife seeking softer slippers for banquets. As Lucius works, he listens to the cacophony of daily life, the clang of blacksmiths forging iron nails, the roar of a cart overturned in a blind alley, the call of an auctioneer selling off furniture from a bankrupt household. Each sound paints a portrait of survival and community, where cooperation and competition entwine. Yet, Lucius's world holds its own form of hierarchy and prestige. A well-crafted sandal earns reputation. A sturdy hobnailed boot secures the long walk to Ostia. He dreams of more, of owning a small domus of his own and sending his son to a grammaticus for schooling. But dreams are tempered by reality. Imagine yourself walking through the bustling streets of Rome at dawn, where shifting shadows reveal the stark contrasts of city life. On one side stand the towering domus of the elite, marble porticos adorned with colourful frescoes, tiled roofs gleaming in the morning light, and courtyards lush with orange trees and fountains still dripping from their nightly flows. Statues of ancestors gaze down from pedestals, reminding residents of lineage and duty. On the other side lie insulae, multi-storied apartment blocks of rough brick and wood, where lower-class families wake to cramped rooms, shared latrines and narrow stairways that echo with the shuffle of waking feet. The air here is thick with the scents of fires stoked for the day's cooking, the tang of refuse piled in alleyways, and the faint undertone of dust stirred by the clatter of cart wheels. Your steps carry you first to the domus of Gaius Aurelius Severus, a senator of esteemed bearing. Torches still gutter in bronze holders as his slaves, men and women in simple tunics, carry water from the fountain, scrub the marble floors, and smooth cushions in the atrium's triclinia. You pass his villa's central peristyle, where bees hum among potted violets and roses, and admire the polished stone where guests will recline for breakfast. Inside the dining room, a slave lays out delicate wares. Silver cups engraved with mythological scenes, glass goblets imported from Syria, and dishes heaped with olives, figs, and honey cakes. From the kitchen comes the aroma of spiced porridge, pulse, with vegetables grown in distant estates and sprinkled with garum for a savoury edge. Severus himself emerges in a stola of deep purple, its broad stripes marking his senatorial rank. He greets you with the placid courtesy of one accustomed to influence. His speech is measured, each word chosen to convey wisdom and gravitas. He pours wine, Falernian from the slopes of Mount Falernus, tasting it with a discerning nod. As you dine, discussing matters of governance, grain dole distribution, repairs to the aqueducts, the latest edicts from the emperor, there is an underlying certainty that shapes every conversation. Power flows where wealth and birth converge. Here, decisions are made with pens behind closed doors, not with swords in open arenas. Leaving the Domus, you cross to the Subura district, where the day's labour begins in earnest. Children leap down from wooden balconies, chasing each other through narrow lanes. Market stalls open. Vendors cry out the day's prices for cabbage, fish, and leather sandals. Aroma from baking bread drifts from compact ovens built into shop walls. In a nearby insula, Lucius Flavius, a cobbler by trade, begins his day. His workshop occupies the ground floor, where he sits on a low stool carving soles from thick leather. His hands are calloused. He moves with practiced precision. Each cut and stitch must meet the needs of a customer, who may be a soldier needing new boots, a slave brought to work under the sun, or a senator's wife seeking softer slippers for banquets. As Lucius works, he listens to the cacophony of daily life, the clang of blacksmiths forging iron nails, the roar of a cart overturned in a blind alley, the call of an auctioneer selling off furniture from a bankrupt household. Each sound paints a portrait of survival and community, where cooperation and competition entwine. As midday sun reaches its zenith, the pulse of Rome quickens. From the grand forums to hidden alleyways, life thrums with purpose and pressure. To experience this contrast in intimate detail, let us follow two figures whose mornings have converged in the heart of the city. A senator's freedman and a veteran gladiator turned blacksmith. Titus Marcellus, once a slave manumitted by Atticus's decree, begins his day at the house of the Vestals, where his skills as a scribe and steward are in demand. He rises in modest chambers above the temple's cloistered gardens, light filtering through slatted windows onto his simple wooden desk. His first task is to transcribe the Vestal's records, listings of oil deliveries, altar maintenance schedules, and petitions from citizens seeking blessings. Each stroke of stylus tells of religious duty and civic order. As he moves through hallowed halls, wisps of incense drift through marble porticos. Vestal virgins pass by in calm procession, white robes flowing, bare feet silent on polished floors. The hush and ritual remind Titus of his past life's rigidity, yet now he serves with autonomy, wielding soft power behind the sacred ceremonies. Meanwhile, across the Tiber, the veteran blacksmith Ulpius sets to work in his forge near the Isola Tiberina. His workshop, smoke-stained, iron-laden and filled with the clang of hammer on anvil, feels like home. He fits the heavy goggles, tongs in hand, and ignites coals until a fierce glow transforms raw iron into malleable steel. Each strike shapes a new tool, a ploughshare for a farmer, nails for a carpentry shop, and occasionally a ceremonial gladius for the Praetorian Guard. Ulpius's muscles flex with practiced ease, the sweat from the forge mingling with soot on his brow. He pauses to wipe his forehead, then dips the blade in quenching oil, watching steam rise in hissing plumes. His thoughts drift to the sands where he once fought, and he imagines the rhythm of combat through the chime of metal meeting metal. Back in the temple precinct, Titus delivers his transcribed scrolls to the chief Vestal. She receives them with a nod, then inquires after his welfare and prospects. He expresses gratitude for the stability provided by service, yet reveals a softer hope that one day he might journey to his native province to reunite with family. Ulpius, sensing the heat's peak, retrieves a wooden cup of water and drinks deeply. As dawn's light filters through the arches of the Colosseum, imagine yourself standing where centuries of history converge. The arena floor, once churned by hooves and boots, lies quiet in the soft morning glow. Yet, if you listen closely, you can almost hear the distant echo of drums, the murmur of the crowd and the clash of steel. Our final segment explores the broader impact of gladiators on Roman society and their enduring legacy. We'll consider how these fighters shaped concepts of celebrity, influenced art and literature, and left traces that resonate even in modern times. To begin, reflect on the concept of celebrity in ancient Rome. Gladiators were among the first mass celebrities, men and women whose names and deeds were known throughout the empire. Imagine a mosaic in a wealthy patron's villa depicting the helmet of Flamma, a famed secutor with 4 rudies. Fan clubs of sorts formed around these fighters. Graffiti praised their prowess, small oil lamps bore their likenesses, and dedicated poets penned verses in their honour. Contemplate the social power this infused. A gladiator's endorsement, be it a public appearance or a simple nod from the arena floor, could sway public opinion and curry favour with the populace. Politicians and emperors courted these champions, offering gifts and privileges. In this way, gladiators wielded a form of soft power that complemented the authority of Rome's elite. Next, consider their influence on art and literature. Visual representations of combat adorned frescoes, pottery, and public monuments. Writers like Martial and Juvenal reference gladiators in epigrams and satires, using them as symbols of courage, foolishness, or the empire's moral contradictions. The famous anecdote of Emperor Titus shedding tears after the eruption of Vesuvius in 79 CE is often contrasted with his famously apolitical celebration of games, illustrating how the spectacle could both unite and numb the public conscience. In cultural memory, gladiators occupied a liminal space, at once feared, admired, and pitied. Christian writers of the early centuries AD reinterpreted their stories as parables of martyrdom and sacrifice. Saints like Perpetua and Felicity, martyred in the arena, became part of this narrative. Their deaths reframed not as entertainment but as testament to faith. As part 1 of this segment closes, ponder the paradox. Warriors who fought for life and death inspired both adulation and reflection. Their legacy extends beyond the faded bloodstains of the sand into the realms of art, politics, and collective memory, a testament to the enduring allure of spectacle and the complexities of the human desire to both witness and transcend violence. Continuing our exploration of the arena's lasting echoes, let us consider how the memory of gladiatorial games shaped Rome's physical and social landscape long after the crowds dispersed. In the heart of the city, the Colosseum stood as a testament to imperial ambition and popular spectacle. Over centuries, its grandeur inspired smaller amphitheatres in provincial towns, Modena, Pozzuoli, and Arles included. Each echoed the architecture of Rome's iconic arena, yet adapted to local audiences and materials. Red brick facades in the north, volcanic stone in the south, and elaborate mosaic floors in the east. The presence of these structures fostered communal identity. Townspeople gathered not merely to watch combat, but to participate in civic rituals. Festivals centered around games, markets blossomed nearby, and artisans profited from the demand for souvenirs. Painted oil lamps, terracotta figurines, and woven textiles depicting gladiatorial scenes. Beyond architecture, consider the economy built upon the games. Breeders in Numidia raised lions and panthers. Greek trappers supplied bears. Shipments of exotic animals travelled along maritime routes, their cages stacked aboard vessels bound for Ostia. The black market for ivory and hides thrived, funding networks that connected distant provinces to Rome's entertainment machine. In the capital, an entire population served the amphitheatre. Ticket brokers, entertainers and vendors earned livelihoods. Some families passed down roles through generations. Animal handlers, armourers and lantern lighters, each contributing specialised skills. Their descendants populated the guilds that would later formalise in the medieval period, an evolution rooted in the practical necessities of staging spectacles. But not all outcomes were positive. The brutality of the games influenced public morale and political stability. Juvenal, in his satires, lamented that bread and circuses pacified a restless populace, dulling civic engagement. Historians debate whether the spectacle's bloodlust eroded moral standards or provided a controlled outlet for societal tensions. Christian writers, emerging in the 3rd century, repurposed the imagery of the arena to articulate spiritual battles. Martyrs drawn into the stadium became icons of faith, their suffering reframed as the victory over temporal powers. Artistic depictions, mosaics in catacombs and frescoes in basilicas, portrayed saints facing lions, blending pagan spectacle with Christian virtue. As the empire transitioned into late antiquity, emperors and bishops grappled with the game's legacy. Constantine restricted brutal contests. Honorius officially banned gladiatorial combat in 404 CE, condemning the practice as incompatible with Christian values. The amphitheatres, once roaring with cheers, gradually fell silent, their stones repurposed for churches, fortifications and civic buildings. Yet, the imprint remained. Place names like Piazza del Global in Ravenna recall areas once hosting spectacles. Local legends speak of tunnels beneath ruined arenas where ghosts of fighters whisper. In modern Europe, medieval jousts and tournaments revived chivalric echoes of gladiators, adrenaline-fueled contests that celebrated martial skill within structured rules. In contemporary culture, the gladiator's image endures. Films, novels and video games invoke the archetype of the armoured warrior battling both beasts and injustice. Public fascination persists because the arena taps into primal themes: life and death, spectacle and sacrifice, individual glory and collective identity. As part 2 of this segment closes, ponder how the ripples of the arena extended far beyond Rome's walls. The physical remnants of amphitheatres, the economic networks of animal trade, and the social rituals of games-shaped societies for centuries. Even as steel gave way to stone churches, the gladiator's legacy lived on in memory, myth, and modern imagination. As our journey through time approaches its close, let us envision how the echoes of the arena continue to resonate in unexpected ways, shaping modern perceptions of entertainment, heroism, and the human capacity for both violence and compassion. Picture a modern stadium, the roar of tens of thousands, spotlights cutting through evening darkness, athletes straining beneath the weight of expectation. Though petals no longer flutter onto sand, the instincts at play mirror those in ancient Rome. competition, spectacle, and the communal release of emotion. Gladiatorial combat has been replaced by sports and performances, but the thrill of witnessing struggle endures. Consider the narratives we craft around our champions. In antiquity, slain warriors were mourned and venerated, survivors paraded as heroes. Today, athletes are immortalized in statues, documentaries, and social media. Endorsement deals replace Lanista patronage. Fan clubs flourish online. Yet the core remains. Public figures whose physical prowess and personal stories captivate collective imagination. Reflect on the ethical debates sparked by the gladiatorial legacy. While the games fulfilled Rome's appetite for violence, they also prompted questions of human dignity. Questions that echo in our own debates over contact sports, animal rights in entertainment, and the spectacle of reality television. Society continually negotiates the boundary between acceptable contest and exploitation. In art and literature, the gladiator motif persists. Films like Gladiator evoke the dust and drama of the Colosseum. Novels reframe ancient tales through fresh perspectives. Comic books and video games adopt gladiatorial imagery to explore themes of survival and resistance. These reinterpretations keep the memory alive, reminding us that the arena was more than a fighting pit. It was a stage for humanity's greatest dramas. On another front, scientists and scholars continue to unearth new layers of gladiatorial life. Advances in bioarchaeology allow the study of bones to reveal diet, health, and even the specific injuries sustained in combat. Digital reconstructions of amphitheatres enable us to simulate acoustics and sightlines, offering visceral insights into what it was like to stand in the crowd or step onto the sand. Moreover, modern reenactment societies, educational programs, and immersive experiences invite enthusiasts to try on armour, practice drills, and adopt the discipline of training, always with the caveat of safety and respect for historical reality. Through these practices, a connection is forged across millennia, bridging the gap between ancient fighters and contemporary participants. As Part 3 draws to a close, consider this. The gladiator's world was one of stark contrasts: enslavement and freedom, brutality and honour, anonymity and fame. These tensions resonate today as we grapple with our own forms of spectacle and celebrity. The arena, in all its forms, challenges us to reflect on the costs and virtues of human competition. Soon we will reach our conclusion, a gentle closing that ties together these threads and ushers us toward contemplation and rest. But before we do, take a moment to breathe deeply, feeling the weight of history and the soft cadence of these stories settle within you. The sands may have shifted, but their whispers endure, inviting us to remember, learn, and ultimately find peace in the quiet that follows the crowd's roar. As twilight deepens over the ancient stones of Rome, let us take a final journey through the echoes of the arena and the lives it shaped. Imagine the Colosseum's silhouette against a sky brushed with lavender and rose, its arches casting long, gentle shadows upon the silent sand. The roar of the crowds has faded, leaving only a soft memory carried on the evening breeze. In our exploration, we immersed ourselves in the daily rhythms of gladiators, their taxing routines of training, the hush of dawn in the barracks, the measured drills that honed body and mind. We walked alongside Marcus Attilius, a man torn from pastoral peace to the fortunes of fame, whose legend was forged in the crucible of sand and steel, and whose journey later led him from the sands to the Senate. We unearthed the buried voices of fighters in graffiti and grave goods, tracing their hopes and fears in the dust of time. We contrasted the worlds of elite households and crowded markets, of stately marble domus and humble insuli, of silken stolas and leather sandals, all woven into the tapestry of Rome's vast society. And we traced the arena's ripples through architecture, economics, and cultural memory. How amphitheatres rose across provinces, how the trade in beasts and armour bound far-flung lands to Rome's appetite for spectacle, and how the martyrs of the sand found new meaning in faith and art. Through each segment a steady rhythm has carried us, a soft patter of boots on earth, the distant beat of drums, the whisper of council debates, the scratch of trowels against clay, the hum of markets, and the clang of the forge. This rhythm mirrors the pulse of history itself, a steady beat of human endeavour and endurance, coloured by ambition, tempered by ritual, and shaped by the ever-turning wheel of fortune. Consider now the shadows that linger in this twilight, the lives lost in the name of spectacle, the dreams deferred beneath layers of dust, the grit of sand that stained both body and soul. Yet alongside these shadows, there is warmth, the camaraderie forged in shared struggle, the quiet pride of a craftsman's handiwork, the solace found in ritual and remembrance. In the discipline of training and the discipline of governance, we glimpse the resilience that binds individuals to community and humanity to memory. In drawing our journey to a close, let us gently contrast the world of the arena with the comforts of our own. Where once men paced beneath the harsh glare of midday sun, we lie sheltered beneath soft blankets. Where steel once rang against shield, we hear only the hush of night. Yet the stories of these ancient fighters continue to speak across millennia, reminding us of the costs of our own entertainment, the price of resilience, and the enduring need for compassion in the face of hardship. As you drift toward rest, imagine the soft susurrus of a distant crowd, the flicker of torchlight on stone, and the hush that followed the final salute of sword and shield. Let the memory of these resilient souls, their trials and triumphs, guide you gently towards sleep, reminding you that even in the darkest arenas, the human spirit can find moments of grace. Thank you for accompanying me through this journey. May the steady rhythm of history cradle you as you rest, and may the lessons of the past bring you peace in the quiet of today. Good night.